Throughout history, many have planned to dominate the world by torture, terror, and unscrupulous cunning. But none was so ruthless as the woman they called Sumuru.
So now tell me what you want.
You. At the moment, we need a man for a specific task.
And if I refuse?
Then you will be killed.
Sumuru, the beautiful brain behind a dream that becomes a nightmare for any man who crosses her.
Look at me. Whatever else I am a woman.
Oh, yes, yes.
Shirley Eaton as Sumuru.
We're not talking about actors. We mean a real monster.
I brought her back. She'll live and I'll get her another body.
I'm gonna kiss me, but don't let anyone see me like that. Please, doctor, help me.
Biologically speaking, it's of primary importance that man should want to mate. Hey, that's...
You don't get all your kicks from surfing, do you?
We want to be free to ride our machines without being hassled by the man. And we want to get loaded.
You think you're gonna make a slave of the world? I'll see you in hell first.
The American International Podcast.
Are you ready?
Hello and welcome to the American International Podcast. I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Morgan.
And today we're talking about The Million Eyes of Sumuru from 1967.
This is a strange film.
It is. It's half parody, half sci-fi spy thriller. Maybe more than half parody. It makes some attempts at being funny that don't land very well, but it definitely does have that Austin Powers feel to it, where there's a mad woman trying to take over the world and a couple of agents trying to stop her.
The Million Eyes of Sumuru was directed by Lindsay Shonteff from a screenplay by Kevin Kavanagh, which itself was from a story by Peter Welbeck.
And the whole concept is based on the novel Sumuru by Sax Rohmer, who is the same writer who created the Fu Manchu character.
And this film was produced by Harry Alan Towers.
Yes, he's kind of a character from what I understand.
The film stars Frankie Avalon as Agent Tommy Carter, George Nader as Agent Nick West, Shirley Eaton as Sumuru, Wilfrid Hyde-White guest starring as Colonel Sir Anthony Baisbrook.
Why do movies have guest stars? This happens a lot. I don't understand. Another guest star is Klaus Kinski as President Boong, and yes, that's with a G. And then we have Patti Chandler as Louise, Salli Sachse as Mikki, Ursula Rank as Erna, Krista Nell as Zoe, Maria Ram as Helga Martin, Paul Chang-Chungus as Inspector Koo, Essie Lin Chia as Kitty, and John Fong as Colonel Medica. And we open what seems to be a parade, but it's actually a funeral procession.
Yeah, it's very out-of-tune processional.
Yeah, there is a song being played by a marching band, but also somewhere we're hearing the sound of like a million out-of-tune bagpipes.
Yeah, this isn't in the United States, so it's not a marching band with horns and tubas and...
No, but it's also not like a funeral dirge as you would expect. It's just sort of some off-key caterwauling music. So we see this is in Hong Kong, I believe. And we are watching the funeral procession go up and over a bridge. But we're not the only ones watching. There's a woman watching, and she's looking at her watch. And we also hear a voiceover.
The voiceover introduces itself to the audience, us, as Sumuru.
Right. And Sumuru has a mission here, and the woman who's overseeing it is one of her henchwomen, I guess you could say. One
a
of her
pair
minions.
Of her million eyes.
Right, because the million eyes, it's sort of like the beast with a million eyes, which was just a bunch of animals and their own pair of eyes. This is all the women who work for Sumuru, and you divide them in half and you have a million eyes.
It's like her network of spies.
Yeah. I should say, like, if you count them up, it comes to a million eyes. Give or take. There might be like a couple of one-eyed women in there.
No, they would probably be killed.
No, there's only one reason that you get drummed out of the Sumuru Corps, and we'll get to that. Oh, you mean killed by, like, the bad guys?
No. I meant, if you can't have a pair of eyes, you're useless to me.
Oh, well, I don't know. That's debatable. I'm surprised there wasn't someone with an eye patch, to be honest. The voiceover tells us that the funeral's for the richest man in the world, who has 17 sons, and these 17 sons are in the funeral procession, and apparently they're all squeezed onto this tiny little footbridge that goes over a stream. And the moment that they're all within range, a bomb goes off. It does nothing to the bridge, but it kills everybody in the blast radius.
And this leads us to the opening credits.
Yes, it's Sax Rohmer's The Million Eyes of Sumuru. Even though he just created the character, he didn't really write anything for this movie.
So as the credits wrap up, the blonde woman is returning to wherever she came from. She docks her boat and heads to this house.
It's not really a house. It's like a temple or a pagoda.
A villa.
Yeah. We're in Hong Kong, so it follows the standard architecture of Hong Kong. So she trots up the stairs and into the lounge, and something very unusual is going on here. It looks like a bunch of bored women just kind of waiting around with nothing to do. They're all dressed in the identical yellow dresses. They all have very inexpressive faces. Many are smoking or drinking or both. But we soon come to see that they are all watching something that is happening on the floor in front of them.
Yes, there's a man with tape over his mouth, and he is in a stranglehold. But what's unique about the stranglehold is it's being done by a woman's thighs.
Yeah. Now, before you get all excited, he doesn't seem too into it. This is not a consensual sex game here. And she's just toying with him. You can tell that she's got all day. He can struggle all he likes. His hands are bound. His mouth is taped. But he's not getting away. And then she looks at the woman who just came in. She's a commanding blonde woman who seems to be of a higher rank than most of the women in the room there. And she asks mercy. And the blonde woman just gives a little head shake. And so she twitches her thighs and his neck snaps and he's dead.
The blonde woman says that there is trouble in Rome, and Sumuru enters.
Yes, Sumuru. She looks great. She's dressed in this gorgeous dress. She's beautiful. She's played by Shirley Eaton, who is a Bond girl, famously painted gold in Goldfinger. And she's obviously the head person here, that she's in charge. And she asks about the mission, if there are any next of kin, and the answer is no. So she does a sort of a little namaste thing with her hands to indicate her approval. But no time to rest on those laurels because there's a new mission.
Yeah, the trouble in Rome that I spoke of.
Right.
It turns out that one of the pairs of eyes of Sumuru has fallen in love.
And that is the most unforgivable sin, according to the Sumuru code, I guess. So here we are on a beach. We're in Italy. And not all of the women, but just sort of like a handful. So there's a posse of black bikini-clad women approaching another woman on the beach. And it's nothing good is going to happen here for her.
No, she goes into the water, and there are 3 other women who surround her. And they quickly force her under the water and drown her.
Yeah, and it didn't take very long. Like, she apparently can't hold her breath at all.
She didn't seem to struggle much.
No, but I guess it was inevitable. Like, no matter what, she was dead.
So they leave her floating there, and we cut to Nick West of the CIA and Tommy Carter kind of hanging out.
Yeah, and then here's where the movie gets really dull. I don't like these guys. I don't like the characters. I don't like the actors. This is the first wrong step the movie makes to me. But anyway, they start to converse and we learn who they are and what they're up to.
We learn about their personalities as Tommy runs off almost immediately to chase a girl.
The other, Nick West, is the American. I guess he's an agent, but he's on vacation. He's approached by a third man. This is Colonel Sir Anthony Baisbrook. And he has a request for Nick West, despite the fact that he's on vacation. He alludes to the fact that, their countries have collaborated before. And he needs a teeny little favor that Nick West is not very keen to cooperate with.
And it appears that Nick agreed because we are now in a club and Nick is meeting with the employer of the murdered girl.
Employer and ex-boyfriend, or late boyfriend, I guess. And he wants them to solve the murder. I guess he wants Nick to solve the murder. Tommy's there, but he's not really, he's some sort of dilettante. He's rich and just does the spy games for kicks, I guess, when he feels like it.
I didn't get that impression. I thought he was just on vacation with Nick.
But why are they on vacation together? I mean, it doesn't make sense. They don't really introduce them as a pair of friends. They just happen to be in the same orbit somehow. But he does say that Tommy is very rich and his skills are karate and dancing and, nothing very serious, fencing, that kind of thing.
His father left him $18 million, so it seems that he just hangs out with CIA for fun.
Right, yeah, that's what I said. He's just a dilettante. The person we're meeting is Colonel Medica, and he doesn't think the Italian police are up to the job of solving his girlfriend's murder. He thinks that West can actually get more done. He's also the attaché of President Boong of Sinanesia, made-up country. He doesn't have time, because he's on this goodwill tour with the president. So he doesn't have time to do the legwork here. That's why he's asking Nick. He does think that the murder is a sort of an attempt to get at him or at President Boong through him. So it is more serious than just one mystery murder here.
So Medica leaves, and as he exits the building, he notices another man lying on the ground. He stops and looks and decides to go check on him. And it turns out it's a ruse.
Oh, yeah, big surprise.
The man on the ground is not unconscious.
Does not need help.
And has, I guess, a chloroform in a rag that he is now going to use on a struggling Medica.
Yeah, that's an old classic. Like, why not use it? It never fails. So he quickly subdues Medica, and then a little ambulance pulls up, and then inside the ambulance, there's an ambulance crew with a stretcher. They plop him on the stretcher and drive away. We're back in the club. Also, there is the woman who oversaw the funeral massacre, and she is observing them as well. So the million eyes things mean that you can never do anything unobserved by Sumuru or her agents. So Nick is leaving the club. He comes out and he sees Medica being loaded into the ambulance. And he keeps driving. Like, this doesn't make him hit the brakes. But while it's happening, he actually puts his car in reverse and comes back and sees what's happening just in time for them to get away and him to start chasing them.
And as he's driving off, Tommy comes out and sees Nick, who was probably his ride, driving off.
I don't know. His car is like a 2-seater and he's got a girl with him. I don't think they all three could have crammed themselves into that car. It's a really sweet little red Italian sports car, too. So that's one highlight of the movie. Very cool cars.
So Nick is following the ambulance, and he comes up to, I guess, a hospital where it's parked.
Yeah, it's like a private hospital. I don't read Italian, so I can't really tell you what it says. But he sees the ambulance parked there, so he knows he's in the right place.
So Nick breaks in and speaks with the receptionist, who asks who he is and how he got in there.
Yep, and won't tell him any information. She says, leave your name and number, and I'll give you a call if I find this guy.
So she wanders off and leaves him alone. So he's going through the hallway looking for Medica. And he sees him being gurneyed into another room by 3 nurses.
Are they nurses? He approaches them, and the nurses pull weapons out from under the gurney. And they start approaching him. Unbeknownst to him, as he's kind of confronting this threat in front of him, there's a sister behind him, sort of like nun/nurse that hospitals had in Europe. So she comes up behind him and basically takes him down.
Now, Nick wakes up in a real hospital, and Sir Anthony is explaining how he got there.
That's right. It's all down to our friend Tommy Carter, who, even though it didn't seem to me that he could have seen what was going on, he did follow Nick, and he did find him unconscious in this fake hospital, or whatever it is, and got him to the real hospital. He also comes in bearing the gift of a wrapped cactus instead of flowers. Very strange and not really explained at all.
Sir Anthony still wants West to help with the case, but West insists that he's on vacation.
Right, but his request is very simple. There's this villa that we want you to check out. Somehow, I don't know how they know about this villa, but it's apparently something suspicious is going on there. And he just wants Nick to kind of go and give it the once-over, which he agrees to.
It's simple enough that the next time we catch up with Nick and Tommy, they are approaching this villa.
Right, and there's no security outside.
But there is inside.
Oh, yeah.
They're being monitored the entire time. Tommy goes to find a way inside, and Nick is hiding around a corner of another building and grabs a security guard as she comes by.
It's the same woman from the hospital who was playing a receptionist.
And she says she cannot resist the presence of a man, yes. So they kiss.
This is a common theme, adding to the extreme unbelievability of this movie.
Well, because she had no problem resisting him at the hospital.
Right, yeah, she should have jumped his bones then. That definitely would have distracted him from his search for Medica.
So this is going on. Tommy has made his way inside, and he watches. There's an initiation ceremony going on with the Sumuru clan.
Right. So this is just like the other lair that they had in Hong Kong, where everyone kind of sits around and watches Sumuru give her pronouncements or whatever's happening. So the woman being initiated is Helga. She's blonde. She looks vaguely Swedish. Sumuru's going to show off her assets to the assembled women.
Sumuru says that she approves of this new sister and pulls down Helga's dress for the approval of the other sisters.
I don't get this. Like, this is not skill-based. Like, everyone has boobs here. Hers aren't that special, I'm sure. But anyway, everyone's cool with it, so she is part of the gang, I guess.
And Sumuru announces that Phase 1 is now nearly complete and has been thus far successful.
Right, and so the women have to return to their posts all over the world. Some of them are together, some of them are alone. But their main mission is to kind of cozy up to leaders, men obviously, and sort of become their wives or mistresses, and either, I guess, kill them or just sort of report back on what they're up to.
And she says that this mission has not been completely successful because there's still one man standing in their way, but he will be taken care of in Hong Kong on the 25th.
So the blonde sort of second in command here, her name's Erna. She goes to investigate, and she catches West making out with the woman, and somehow West gets away. I don't see how, but the woman is taken into custody, basically, and brought before the other women for another, I guess, tribunal.
Yeah, she is forced to surrender her gun and is smacked to the ground, and she begs forgiveness, but is shot.
Right. Erna shoots her. So somehow Tommy got away too without ever being spotted, I think. And he and West went out for a celebratory drink, and they come back to their hotel room. They're kind of wasted, and they start talking about how they're being taken advantage of by Sir Anthony. And they're going to call him and complain. And when West flops down into his bed to make a phone call, well, what a surprise. There is a dead woman there. And it's the same woman that he both made out with and was the one in the hospital.
They realize that this is a frame-up, and so they exit the room immediately.
There's some gendarmes at the door who were alerted to something suspicious. So they must have gone out the window. And
as they're fleeing the premises, Sir Anthony drives by and picks them up.
Yeah, how convenient. I feel like this has all been a setup, that he engineered, but there's really no evidence for that. It's just super convenient.
And he says he's been following them.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense then.
And he wants to send them to Hong Kong.
I guess the British government is also interested in President Boong and keeping him safe. Since Medica was killed, the president doesn't really have his aide anymore, and they want to replace him. So the British government is also interested in President Boong, and Sir Anthony wants to send Nick and Tommy over there to protect him.
They politely decline, but Sir Anthony tells the driver to take them to the airport because he knows that he will be able to convince them en route to go to Hong Kong.
And they really have no choice in the matter.
And cut to them arriving in Hong Kong.
They're on the tarmac. Tommy has to go look for the luggage, and while he's off collecting that, Sumuru's women drive up in their vehicle. Nick goes over to take a look at what's happening, and they force him into the car and drive away with him.
And they take him to the villa in Hong Kong, where he will meet with Sumuru.
She has a private interview with him, asks to see his profile, and says that she thinks he'll do nicely. We don't know for what yet.
Yeah, she says she needs him for a specific task, and he's puzzled because, as he understands it, her organization is exclusively female. But she lets him know that they use many men.
And use is the operative word here.
And most don't even realize it.
Basically here, she's making him an offer that he can't refuse, but it doesn't really appear that he wants to refuse. He's really like a go along to get along kind of guy. He'll do whatever is asked of him.
And she leads him to a laboratory, and he notices a man standing in a cage, and he seems pretty complacent.
Apparently he's been drugged. He's her guinea pig. You can see that there's something wrong with his arm. It's not the same color as the rest of his skin, and it looks really stiff.
And we learned that Not only is he drugged, but his tongue has been cut out so that he can't complain. And this concerns Nick because he's been put in this position where they're going to be using him for something. And he doesn't want to be a guinea pig. He likes his tongue. He likes his
other parts attached to his body.
But she assures him that for what she wants him for, that she needs his tongue, his brains.
Everything else intact.
Yes.
Now Sumuru wants to show him another part of the lair. So she grabs her new weapon that they've been working on. It's called a mortise gun. She leads him through the compound to the dungeon. On the way, he makes a really lame Chinese laundry joke. This movie was made in 1967, but still not really forgivable. It's not even close to being funny. When they get to the dungeon, she shows him that there's a man captured there. A man who looks very much like him.
And she says his name is Andrews. And Andrews tries to warn Nick that Sumuru is mad and
he should run.
And Sumuru shoots him with the mortise gun.
And he makes these really dumb, twitchy, jerky motions. And eventually he freezes and becomes statuified. So that's what the mortise gun does. It's not a stun gun as I initially thought. It actually is like a Medusa ray where it turns people into statues. When Sumuru was checking out West's profile, it was because she wanted to make sure that he looked like the guy she just killed. Andrews was meant to be President Boong's next aide. Now West is going to take his place as a lookalike.
Meanwhile, Tommy is doing his own investigation, and he goes to the local DMV.
Is it the DMV? It looked like it was the police station.
Maybe, but he asked for license plate information, and the guy knows right off the top of his head whose car that is.
Yeah, there's no mystery here. Oh, that's Sumuru. Here's the location of her private island. You'd be on your way now.
And back at the villa, Sumuru is treating Nick to a slideshow.
This is where we see Klaus Kinski for the first time in, I guess, president drag, if you want to call it that. He looks really goofy here. Apparently he's a womanizer. Not that you could ever tell by his dress or mannerisms, but he doesn't trust the women that he's with. He will use them and throw them away, but he doesn't confide in them. And that's why she needs Nick West to get in there.
And she informs him that Helga, who we know as the new initiate, will be accompanying him. And she has papers made up with Andrew's information and gives him that as well as a .38 caliber gun.
What she wants is for West to introduce Helga to Boong as soon as possible. And she's very emphatic about that.
And then we catch up with Tommy, who is on a dock, and he's still looking for Nick. And an Asian woman comes up to him and says she knows where Nick is.
Yeah, she has a message from Nick.
But she can't talk here, so she leads him onto a boat. And she says Sumuru is holding Nick prisoner, and that she was sent to kill Tommy, and that she's scared and needs help going to the police.
And this works very well on Tommy. He embraces her, and while they're in a clinch, she pulls a knife out of her bag and tries to stab him. But lucky for him, some sort of busybody old lady was watching them, and she screams.
And the screams alert him, and he backs off, and now he sees the knife. She lunges at him, but she's wearing heels, which aren't boat-friendly, and she gets it stuck on a cable that's on the deck, and she trips and falls overboard.
Yep, so Tommy again has accomplished nothing.
Now we're in a hotel room, and Nick is making a phone call to confirm his meeting with President Boong as Sydney Andrews.
Helga is there. She and Nick have a little bit of banter going on, and he puts the moves on her. It doesn't seem very consensual at first, and that's kind of important later. So he puts the moves on her, but eventually she does get into it and kisses him back.
Yeah, it's very awkward banter.
It's everything about this guy is awkward.
But now it's time for Nick to meet President Boong. Well, it's time for Andrews to meet President Boong.
Yes, it's actually Nick, of course. We know that. He goes through the inspection of his passport. He passes. Then he has to go down this hallway where there's more guards, and he gets past them. And then he walks into Boong's room.
And there's nobody in the room, but we see somebody peeking through a doorway at him.
Yep. Hello, Klaus Kinski. And then he kind of flounces into the room.
Yeah, he seems friendly enough, doesn't he?
He's extremely friendly. He's wearing a red kimono, and he's very effusive. He doesn't seem very bothered by anything. He immediately goes to the drinks cabinet to get some champagne,
which he proceeds to spill over the floor as he's conversing.
Yes, this is a very broad comedic performance by Klaus Kinski, and it really does not work.
Nick as Andrews tells Boong that he recently met a girl who is a big fan of his.
He really sells her to Boong by explaining that she's trembling on the brink of womanhood, and she's a big fan, and she's very beautiful and feminine. And I don't know how to put this without sounding terrible. Klaus Kinski gives the most non-masculine reading of his lines here, and yet he seems very interested.
And of course, this girl that Nick is referring to is Helga, because his whole mission here from Sumuru is to set up a meeting between Helga and Boong.
All Boong wants from Andrews, though, is someone to vet his bed partners. Klaus Kinski looks very strange here. His makeup is very gray. It's like he's already been shot with the mortis gun. Later on, there's a reception. Helga gets word that she does have an audience with the president, and she goes off to do something. Wes goes back to his room, and Erna's there to kind of check in on how the mission is going. She also tells Wes that Sumuru demands an audience with him the next morning at 9 o'clock.
So the next morning, Nick is being rickshawed to a boat to head to Sumuru's villa when Tommy notices him. And Tommy hasn't seen him for a while, so he's pretty excited.
Tommy's there getting his shoe shined by a couple of children. And I guess he stiffs them because when Tommy runs away, they run after him and kind of like poke at him until he pays them off.
Nick asks Tommy where he's staying, and Tommy tells him. And while he's dealing with the shoe shine children, Nick takes off running with his umbrella.
His rainbow umbrella.
His rainbow umbrella that was part of this rickshaw. And the rickshaw guy chases after him.
Yeah.
Because it's his umbrella.
And then Tommy chases after them because he wasn't done talking to Nick yet.
Nick jumps on a boat and heads to the island. And Tommy tries to hire a boat and is successful after some bad negotiating.
Yeah, it's supposed to be funny and it isn't. Nick gets to Sumuru's villa. They have a little talk, and I guess the only reason that Sumuru summoned him there was to mac on him. Sumuru says that she needs a man. She wants a man to force himself on her. And here's where Wes says, well, I would never do that, even though we just kind of saw him do it to Helga.
Back at sea, there are several boats that are part of Sumuru's army, and they surround the boat that Tommy's on and throw a bomb at it. And it's time for Helga's meeting with Boong. She arrives for said meeting and is escorted into his room, and she pulls out the mortis gun, but she can't pull the trigger. She says she can't do it.
She doesn't have to shoot him. A guard comes up behind her, takes away her gun, and shoots Boong. Then some more guards come in and shoot the person who shot Boong. She falls down, and it's revealed that she's a woman, even though she was obviously a woman. But that kind of freaks Helga out. She wasn't expecting that.
And this is where Nick arrives.
How did he get there so fast? I thought this was all happening at the same time.
And the shock of the entire movie is it turns out that this guy who was shot was a decoy and not the real President Boong. Boong is still very much alive.
There are a lot of, I guess, people who look alike in this world because Boong has an impersonator and Andrews and West looked exactly alike. When we see Boong, though, something is happening here and it just makes no sense. For one thing, he's wearing a brown, sort of Mary Tyler Moore wig, complete with barrette. He's in brown face. It's just not great. But he's the real Boong, and the other one was an impersonator, and I'm sorry, I'm just at a loss for words at what is happening here.
It's probably just not being able to control Klaus Kinski.
Yeah, I did hear that he had a lot of ideas about what his character should do, including licking everybody. That was basically overruled, but still, he's very, very strange in this role.
And Boong asks if this other woman, who's Helga, asks if Helga is implicated in this crime. And Wes says it appears that she is and that he should take her down to police headquarters immediately.
Boong doesn't want to be left alone, but Wes asks him to figure out how this other guard infiltrated his regular guards. And he and Helga take off. They don't go to the police station, though. They go to his hotel room.
And they're in the elevator, and she says that she wants out of the organization. And this conversation continues as they go to the hotel room. And he gives her Tommy's info, his name and where he's staying, and tells him that he's okay. Tells her that she has 3 options in this situation. She can go back to the villa, say that she killed the double and the security guard was caught in a crossfire, run and stay in hiding for the rest of her life, or she can go to the police.
If she goes to the police, though, she has to tell them everything. And basically rat out Sumuru. I don't see how that would make her any safer, though.
And because Sumuru has eyes everywhere, She enters the room with several of her minions, and Nick and Helga are escorted to a car. Helga's the first to enter the car, and she just gets out the other side and takes off running.
Somehow, Sumuru never anticipated that happening. Now there's a chase all over Hong Kong. Helga and her little cocktail dress and kitten heels outruns all of Sumuru's minions who are chasing her down.
All of both of them.
Well, I assume there's other ones running too, just we don't see them.
And Nick just laughs as the army gives chase.
Helga gets on a ferry just as it pulls away, so she gets away.
And the army of two that was chasing her just shakes their head and they give up and turn and head back with their heads down.
The only place that Helga knows that she can go is Carter's hotel. She enters, finds out where he's staying, and goes to his room. He doesn't want to let her in, though, because he's already been almost murdered by one of Sumuru's henchwomen.
So he has a gun, and he grabs that to answer the door. And he recognizes Helga from Rome because he saw her initiation ceremony, and he isn't interested in being involved because he values his life.
But Helga drops Nick's name again, and again, this works on Tommy. He lets her in, but he's still got her at gunpoint.
She insists that she's unarmed, and she has him search her purse.
He just dumps it out.
And he still doesn't trust her. So she goes behind a curtain to prove that she has no concealed weapons.
This is where we get another comedic line from Frankie Avalon. He says, basically to us, is this the part where I'm supposed to sing?
Nah. Helga comes out with a towel.
And nothing else on.
And opens it and proves that she has no concealed weapons. And Tommy drops his gun.
Yeah, literally drops it on the ground.
And we cut to Sumuru's dungeon. West is a prisoner and is being whipped by Sumuru.
Doesn't really seem to bother him, though. It's not very aggressive whipping, I guess, because he's able to converse with Sumuru. He's kind of even, goading her a bit.
And back at Tommy's hotel room, he's in bed with a fly on his foot.
I don't think that was intentional.
It must have been.
He's also not alone. He has Helga in bed with him. I guess that was all the foreplay he needed when she opened her towel. And they did the deed.
He wakes her, and she's startled, but he assures her that she's with him and it's okay.
Yeah, right.
And Tama and Helga have alerted the police, and there's going to be a raid on Sumuru's villa, and Tommy gets to participate.
Not only Tommy is there, but also Sir Anthony reappears. And he has a little aside with Tommy in front of the Hong Kong police, basically saying that Tommy is one of his agents. Yes, I've been faking an American accent, and therefore Tommy is allowed to participate in this mission. Sir Anthony presents his official documents. The Hong Kong police know that he's okay. He and Tommy have a little conversation that implies that Tommy is working for Sir Anthony, and we're good to go for this mission to finally take down Sumuru.
And back in Sumuru's dungeon, West is in shackles. Sumuru lays a kiss on him and says, "You see, I can be kind."
And he says, "I've had better kisses in high school." And that makes her very angry.
No, she slaps him and
she orders Louise to kill him at this point.
Louise is, we never named her. She was the one at the beginning the Thigh Master.
Yeah. Sumuru gives Louise a gun, though. She does not ask Louise to kill West with her thighs.
And Louise uses the gun to shoot his chains and release him. And then we cut to the police boat arrives at the island, but security on the island knows that they're coming.
There's a sentry on the beach kind of observing what's going on, and people inside the compound know as well.
Sumuru's army starts to take defensive positions. As more police start toward the island, they're all getting onto smaller boats that can make it to the shore.
And then kind of flopping onto the beach, getting very, very wet in the process. Unfortunately for them, they get mowed down almost as soon as they're seen. After they storm the beach, they hit the temple or pagoda, wherever Sumuru is.
As they reach the shore, there are several bombs detonated, and that takes on a few of them right away.
They're coming in stages. Past every stage, some of them get through. Eventually, the compound is breached.
And there's just a lot of shooting.
This takes a very long time to get through all of this.
And some of the police are killed, and some of Sumuru's army are killed, but nobody significant.
Eventually, though, as the cops get inside, Erna gets killed, though. And she was kind of my favorite of all the minions, so that was disappointing to me. The cops get into the dungeon, and they find Nick and Louise, and they're making out on the floor of the dungeon. Apparently, they've been doing that all this time.
There's still a lot of shooting going on, a lot of bombs going off, and the policeman escorts West and Louise out of the villa, and West notices Tommy is there, and they are reunited at last.
We don't know where Sumuru is at this point, but Tommy tells the police and West that Sumuru has enough explosives stashed in this island to turn it into a volcano.
Actually, he says there's enough explosive in there to make this volcano into an island.
Yeah, I believe that was a line flub.
So they make it safely on the boat and make their escape when, as Tommy predicted, the armory explodes.
Doesn't really take out the whole island, but it really blows a hole in the center of it.
And that's the end of Sumuru because no human being could have survived that.
Yes, but as Nick points out, whoever said she was human?
Welcome back to the American International Podcast, where we're discussing The Million Eyes of Sumuru from 1967.
This movie was released on a double bill with Psycho Circus, which also starred Klaus Kinski, and was produced by Harry Alan Towers. Towers is kind of infamous in Hollywood. He was known for dabbling in some unsavory enterprises like drug running and prostitution, and he also had a reputation for being a take the money and run kind of guy, where money that was supposed to go to the production went to him, which made his films look kind of cheap because he didn't spend the money that was designated for it. And you can kind of tell in this movie, too, that probably was the case. Special effects aren't that special. I think the costumes are really nice and the locations are great, but it's just kind of cheesy and cheap looking.
The cast of this movie had several actors who would appear in other AIP projects. Frankie Avalon, of course, was in many of the AIP Beach movies and also appeared in Panic in Year Zero, Dr. Goldfoot and the Bikini Machine, and would appear in Horror House. George Nader would appear in House of a Thousand Dolls.
Klaus Kinski, as we said, was in Psycho Circus. Also, he was in Bang Bang You're Dead, and he later showed up in Venus in Furs. Wilfrid Hyde-White, or Sir Anthony, appeared in Operation Snafu and Bang Bang You're Dead.
Shirley Eaton was, of course, the Bond girl painted in gold and Goldfinger, and was also in the AIP produced but not distributed by AIP sequel to The Million Eyes of Sumuru, The Girl from Rio.
AIP looked at The Girl from Rio after it was produced and declined to distribute it. They gave it to a couple other distributors who ended up changing the title, which is why that movie has several different titles that it is known by. And lastly, Maria Rom was in Bang Bang You're Dead, and she would appear in House of Thousand Dolls, The Girl from Rio, Venus in Furs, and Night of the Blood Monster.
And several of the army of Sumuru would have appeared in many of the beach movies and other movies by AIP because they're essentially background players.
You don't really notice them. They don't have lines for the most part, and they're kind of interchangeable. There is kind of a pop culture legacy to this movie, though. The scene where the women in bikinis kill the other agent who has fallen in love was the impetus for the name of the Riot Girl band Bikini Kill. Musician Lois Maffio adopted the name after she saw the movie. People who are fans of Mystery Science Theater and riff tracks have seen this movie riffed not only in the very first season, the KTMA season of Mystery Science Theater, but also in season 13. And it does have a very Austin Powers feel to it.
Yes, as we mentioned, this is kind of a takeoff on James Bond movies, but it's different because in a way the hero is the villain. Although we aren't rooting for her, it's strange that the title character is the villain.
Well, it's not unlike all those Fu Manchu movies, which came from the same author, where the most interesting character in the movie is the villain. I mean, nobody's going to see this movie because George Nader is Nick West, and even Frankie Avalon fans are probably not interested in this movie because there is no singing, there are no beaches, there is no Annette Funicello. The reason to watch it is for Shirley Eaton as Sumuru.
It kind of makes me wonder if they had done something like that with the James Bond villain. I mean, I would have loved to see Richard Kiel as Jaws doing his character in a non-James Bond movie.
Like a crossover?
Well, like a spinoff.
Oh, yeah, that could have been cool. Or Dr. No.
Think of it like Austin Powers if they just did a Dr. Evil movie, which I would say probably is not out of the realm of possibilities of happening one day, except that Michael Myers just turned 60.
Well, it's all prosthetics, so who cares? So Shirley Eaton acknowledged that this movie and The Girl from Rio weren't great movies, but it seemed like she had a lot of fun playing the character. She said, "I did enjoy being the Wicked Lady Sumuru in 2 rather bad films, which I had not had the chance to be before. But she did retire from acting shortly after this, so it didn't really lead to a long career of wicked villainesses on her resume."
So Cheryl, on our AIP scale, where A is awesome, I is intermediate, and P is pathetic, how would you rate The Million Eyes of Sumuru?
This is a tough one. I don't really give out pathetic a lot because there's always something good in a movie, even if it's just a good idea that it makes it worth watching. In this movie, this character Sumuru, I do really like. I think there's a germ of a good movie in here. It's just that when they add in the antics of the goofy agents, played by Frankie Avalon and George Nader, it just drags the whole movie down to slapstick and almost parody, and it's just not funny. I minus P+. It's sort of in between intermediate and pathetic for me. I think somebody could remake this today and make a really interesting movie out of it. However, as it stands, it's not great, and I can't give it, definitely not an A, and it really doesn't reach the level of I, so I guess a P with, qualifications.
Yeah, this movie, there is a lot of potential there, and I think this is something we see in a lot of AIP product. A few weeks ago, we talked about The Time Travelers, and it has all the ingredients of being a great science fiction movie, but it didn't want to commit to that. It tried to be relatable to a wide variety of people. So it had a lot of comedy in there that didn't really fit, and that dragged the movie down. And it's the same thing with The Million Eyes of Sumuru. It could be a great spy movie. The character of Nick West could be a decent Bond clone if his jibes were 2,000% better.
He wasn't played by such a smarmy actor. And really, Frankie Avalon has no business being in this movie.
And Frankie Avalon is there so that it would appeal to a wider audience, the same way as the humor in The Time Travelers.
Right, but I think they really misjudged the appeal of both the humor and the actor here.
And that does drag the movie down. Because again, the ingredients are there. This could have been great. It's far from great. I am also going to give it a P. There are things in the movie like the flub line at the end where Tommy says that there's enough explosive in there to make this volcano into an island. That should have probably warranted, and there's not a second take, at least an overdub.
Yeah. There's a lot of dubbing in this movie. Klaus Kinski's voice is dubbed.
That's an easy mistake to make if you're not a good actor. So apologies to Frankie Avalon. But if you're just learning lines and not actually invested in your character, this is an easy mistake to make. I did it myself. I was in a play in high school, and all through rehearsal, I was supposed to make a reference to Mount Vernon, and I kept saying Mount Sycamore, which was the name of the person I was talking to. And nobody ever pointed it out to me, but I caught it myself like at the dress rehearsal. So I was okay for the actual performances, but I came really close to screwing that up, and nobody would have told me. I never would have known.
Wow. I'm surprised nobody was paying attention. But it does seem like just like that, nobody was paying attention in this movie. And I don't know much about the work of Lindsay Shonteff, but it doesn't really appear like this is a competent director at work. However, I think that if somebody really wanted to take this character, Sumuru, take the idea of a all-female army, maybe take out some of the sexism where all they are is, like hangers-on, wives and girlfriends of leaders, and kind of have them infiltrate the world and destroy the patriarchy. I think that could be a really cool movie, really fun, definitely watchable, which this movie kind of isn't.
Well, there was another movie made on this storyline in 2003, just called Sumuru, and it takes place in the future on another planet. And it's not much better. It's not better at all.
No. I tried watching that, and it has a very Neil Breen quality to it with very low budget special effects, bad acting, and a confusing storyline that really didn't make me want to finish it, which I did not.
So as a bonus, that's another pathetic.
Yeah. But the character, I think, is really cool. If we knew why she was so thirsty for power and kind of not thrilled with men, but yet still had sexual needs that had to be fulfilled, I think there's probably some good backstory there. I don't know. I keep going on about how I like the character, but hate the movie. But maybe one day there'll be a good version of this movie. I'm hoping.
So on that hope, I think we're wrapping up another episode of the American International Podcast.
Yes, I'm Cheryl Lightfoot.
And I'm Jeff Markin.
And until next time, we'll meet you at the drive-in.
Follow the American International Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at AIP_pod, and on Facebook at facebook.com/American International Podcast.
The American International Podcast is produced and edited by Jeff Markin.
A man whose mind is distorted by hatred.
And Cheryl Lightfoot.
A girl hungry for too many things.
The American International Podcast is part of the Pop Culture Entertainment Network.